is playing pretty much for bragging rights since he already won his bye at the Gentry Invitational. And we're off to the races. Pepijn is well known at this point for playing his token strategies. He also used those to great success at... That's weird. To great success at the Invitational. I'll try to fix the image quality between rounds because this is really atrocious. But we're on our way with Pepijn showing that he is probably playing Delirium, and I can't type anymore. I think Edouard is on a monogreen ramp and just played the Jesus, need to wake up. He played the having some issues with Gatherer here. No, it's just me that doesn't remember the cards. Okay, so I forgot the name, but Edouard played the 1/2 defender that you can top for mana. I hope he's on mono green. He has a Duskwatch Recruiter, and that's a Vessel of Nascency for Pepijn, showing that he is indeed on a hidden stockpiles list, the thing he's known and feared for. But I don't think that the Scavenger was in that list. Okay, thank you, chat. So I'm curious to see what Edouard will be ramping into with his mono green ramp deck. There are some options. Plated Crusher is one of them, and the Stomper, of course. It's the very thing that lets you Arborback Stomper. It's the card that lets you beat aggro draws with a sizable body while gaining a bunch of life. Oh, but we have a Grim Flayer from Pepijn Degryse, the first rare or mythic on the board. Quite an impactful one, actually. So this hidden stockpiles list seems to be more Delirium oriented than previous versions that we've seen. Yeah, Plated Crusher was the card that I was thinking about as well. It's has been the go-to target for these decks usually. I think it's Ulvenwald Captive is the ramping werewolf. There we go. I still know my cards. And we have another Arborback Stomper being added to the battlefield. Edouard sitting at a very comfortable 30 life. Let's try and get that a bit clearer into the image here. There we go. Slightly better view at the life totals. And we have a grapple with the past. Taking back a land. In the meantime, Pepijn also snuck in a Nullwood Dryad, which is currently keeping quite a few things at bay there. It's the little Dryad that could. So the Grimflare comes in. I assume Pepijn has Delirium. Yes, and that kills one of the Arborback Stompers, but we have a I forgot the name of the revolt creature that reanimates something. If somebody in chat can help me, that'd be very nice of you. but we have an Etherworks Harvester. Renegade Rallier, yes. And we have an Ether Sphere Harvester. So it's a Renegade Rallier that returned the Grim Flare. That sort of explains why he was so eager to attack with. And now Pepijn is on the offensive. All his creatures are pumped with Delirium here. It's interesting that he chooses to trade there without using his Harvester. Perhaps I am missing something there. Thank you very much, chat, for the help with the card. Oh, memo to self, do not knock over the microphone. So at this point it looks like Pepijn has a slightly favorable board. It was interesting to see how easily he sacrificed, offered the Grim Flare here, as we get a Duskwatch Recruiter for Edouard. Counting up his mana. I hope he has something interesting to add to the board. Do remember that there's two Nullwood Dryads with Death Touch on the other side of the table, which greatly complicate and limit what he can do. But that's a Tusker. So this deck has borrowed from the green-black counters deck. Apparently he feels that you don't need Constrictors to make sure the Rich-Scale Tusker strong enough, and he gets on the offensive with the Ether Sphere Harvester that has lifelink. This keeps swinging the life totals in his favor. So that's two quite beefy 5-drops in this deck. Really curious to know in what numbers he's running them. As they do clog up that mana slot, and the Ram decks usually want to jump past that and get into ridiculous mana amounts, the 7s, the 6s, though there aren't a lot of good targets outside of rares for that. The dead touches are a problem for Edouard, though. He refuses to offer up anything for them, but now his Duskwatch recruiters change into Krallen Horde Howlers, and that's a lot of mana for him. I count 6, 7, 8, 9 possible mana. It's quite a bit there. There we have the Krallen Horde. So Edouard on the offensive now. Pepijn does have those scavengers, but they're terrible blockers in this situation. The Howlers are 4/4s. So Pepijn is sizing up his defenders. Seems to want to put his focus on the Tusker. That will have him taking 11 damage, if I'm not mistaken. 12 damage, 4 of which has lifelink. And he drops all the way to 4, facing Edouard on 26 life. Again, Edouard is currently pretty high up, if not leading the leaderboard at this point. And if I'm not mistaken, he's not one of those people that come in with the same kind of deck every time. He is testing out stuff, innovating here and there. And he looks quite favored in this game. let's say, prey upon to pick off one of the scavengers. And his Dusquatch recruiters flip back because he played 2 spells this turn. And Pepijn scoops them up. Yeah, thanks for the update. So yeah, Edouard is currently in first place, has a 2-point lead, which is not that much, as his closest chaser is in this event as well, so a match win difference will have him losing his leading position. He's ahead of Sander by 6 points, so there would need to be a match differential of 2 before they tie for first place, and that's disregarding Niels, who could at that point probably overtake both of them. So this is not the last update. The week before the Gentry Open on the 15th of April, we are holding our own season's closer. That means these players still have one other event to clinch that top slot they desire so much for the buy on the Gentry Open, and the top 10% of the leaderboard will also get some extra prizes. Those prizes have been released in the Facebook channel this week and will be random boosters, which include Eternal Masters and Russian Khans of Tarkir. So even if you can't make it to first anymore, it's still interesting. It's still interesting to keep playing to get as high up in the ladder as possible. Yes, May 24th is the Unified Gentry event in St. Niklaas. There's a lot of people looking out for that. It's going to be loads of fun. We had one here in December as well, which was the second biggest event the league has ever hosted. So there's a lot of people interested in the format, and it's quite unique in a way that it's a great teaching tool. You can play together with newer people and teach them how the game works as the game is ongoing. Excuse me very much. So both players have sideboarded. Sideboarding went quite swiftly here. Pretty sure that Edouard is prepared for this deck, as this is a variant on the very deck that Pepijn played in the Invitational that he won. So people are expecting him to be in a stockpiled list, and generally decks have answers to enchantments in their sideboards. So we're expecting our natural states from Edouard at a minimum to deal with hidden stockpiles. And we're off for game 2. Edouard currently leading 1-0 with his mono-green ramp deck. Let's see what game 2 brings. Pretty curious to see what Pepijn brought in, as this is not an easy deck to sideboard against. It's more the kind of deck you beat because they don't get the right distribution of ramp and beef to ramp into, if you may. So Pepijn mulliganing to 6. He is on the play. There's a lot to be said about mulliganing and how much it's changed really with the introduction of I guess they call it the Vancouver rule still, where you get to scry the top card if you mulligan to a number of cards that is less than your starting hand size. So let's see what Pepijn thinks of these 6 cards. And he decides to keep, yeah, scries. And I think he has a one land and a renegade map with a vessel of masonry on top. So this is a main phase renegade map. He wants to keep the card that he saw on top. And we have a scavenger. Moldgraf scavenger, that's the one. Got to learn the card names again. We are also looking into perhaps investing into a better camera. So if anyone has an idea of what's interesting to buy or to use, feel free to contact me. If you have cameras lying around, I'd be very interested in getting a chance to testing them out, seeing what the image quality is, since we have pretty specific needs for our events. I believe that's Watcher's Eye or something like that. No, I have no idea what the Eldrazi is called that Edouard just played. I do know there's a Null Root Dryad on the other side there. And there we have the key Gnarl Wood Vile Redeemer. I don't think that's Vile Redeemer. But we have hidden stockpiles on the other side. Making its first servo token. Edouard also has a druid, the 1/3 that taps for a green mana, and here we have a Duskwatch recruiter getting destroyed by a deadweight. So that's the sideboard card, I presume, for Pepijn. Science Summoner, that's the one. Thank you. So because the deadweight left the play area, that triggers the stockpiles again, and Pepijn gets another servo for that. Now scrying with it in his upkeep. So he will be getting his token back, but oh, we have Liliana, the last hope here. Gets rid of the Scion, gets a servo. It's servos versus Scions here. Edouard is quite pinched on mana, especially considering the fact that he is a ramp deck. I guess he is a bit fortunate even to have the Outrider. We see Pepijn triple blocking and losing his Nullwood. Gives the summoner -2/-1, and here we have the Renegade Rallier. It was an Unbridled Growth that went to the graveyard this turn. Yes, that is a legal card. It's in the starter decks. I forgot the name though. Edouard? Hoe noemt die kaart? Soul of the Harvest. That's the one. So, Soul of the Harvest you will not find in any standard legal deck. You will find it in the starter decks that they hand out for new players, and these intro decks and the Planeswalker dual decks that they're making have extra cards that are legal in Standard and therefore legal in Gentry, and this is a surprise from time to time. We have an Angelic Purge getting rid of the abomination that is not in a standard legal expansion. And again, a card that has synergy with the stockpile. And we have the first fatty for Edouard in the form of an Arborback. So Edouard starting to get into his 5 mana and more casting cost cards. In the meantime, that Liliana keeps ticking up. And with Pepijn in full Durdle mode, it becomes likely that Liliana will get to her ultimate. Oh, we also have a Nissa here. This is a very interesting deck that Pepijn has brought to the table. So that's a Nissa Vital Force. And this time Edouard scoops it up, facing a rather intimidating board. So we've seen 2 Planeswalkers coming out for Pepijn here. That's a very different version of the deck he played at the Invitational, that's for sure. We see a lot more power in independent cards. Yes, drawing your rares is a good solid choice, but we also saw Edouard drawing one of his rares that got handily dispatched by a 2-cent common. So rares win games, removal wins matches. It's a mantra that goes for sealed and limited, but it is just as true in Gentry as we saw here. So Edouard with his mono green is limited to Prey Upon and other fight effects as his removal, where Pepijn can branch out into white and black to get more value out of his removal. Yes, it was a very good showcase game for the hidden stockpiles. Like I said, Pepijn playing a lot of very, very good cards. Yes, that's true. Planewalkers are hard to deal with in Gentry. You pretty much need to have more pressure or some sort of surprise attack to take care of a Planeswalker. I really hope we're getting Duress from Amonkhet or something comparable, a decent discard card, so we can preemptively get rid of Planeswalkers again. Okay, so I think both players kept their opening 7s, and Edouard is off with a forest against a forest of Pepijn and a Gnarlwood Dryad. Edouard has the Ulvenwald Captive and chooses not to trade with the Dryad, indicating that he would rather use it to ramp into something better. It's a Vessel of Nascency. And the Seed Guardian for Edouard. So that explains why his deck seems to be a lot more creature heavy than some of the other versions we've seen so far. Pardon me. It's not because the match isn't interesting, that's for sure. So Pepijn used Evolving Wilds to get to his third color. Unfortunately, he probably drew the hidden stockpile since cracking that Evolving Wilds while it is in play is so much better. Another card that has great synergy with the hidden stockpile. So we have two Death Touchers against a 3/4 and a creature with a Defender, and we get the token from the Seed Guardian followed by an Arbor back. Padding Edouard's life total. So as long as Pepijn doesn't have Delirium, that now would pretty much neutralizes that. Vessel of Nascency gets sacrificed and reveals a Deadweight and Evolving Wilds, a Scavenger, and a Unbridled Growth. This is actually a very interesting Delirium deck if you think about it, with the amount of enchantments it plays, which is a type that not a lot of the other Delirium decks have outside of the Vessel and perhaps Deadweight. Pepijn here gets to play Unbridled Growth and Hidden Stockpiles to beef up the counts. That's a Deadweight taking out the Ulvenwald Captive and stunting Edouard in his mana development, but Edouard gets the land, gets the Rich Scale Tusker, pumps the army, and is coming in hot. Pepijn manages to get rid of the Arbor back, but it still tramples over, and it has already done quite a bit of its damage. So let me move up the screen a bit so we can see the life totals. Sorry, we can't see the graveyards anymore now. We have a Renegade Rallier. Getting back the Gnarlwood. And the Evoke, not the Evoke, the Revolt has still been triggered, so he also gets a Servo token. So Pepijn reloading quite handily here, has the luxury to keep offering these trades, trading what seems to be 1-for-1, but if everything you're playing brings back an additional card, then trading on 1-for-1 isn't that painful. So we have a Grapple with the past. He's getting back. Thank you. I missed what he got back. Plays a Tranquil Expanse. I appear to have an audience of my own right now, so sorry if I seem a bit distracted. So Pepijn sacrificing to Scry and get his Revolt enabled, gets it back and passes the turn. So he didn't really have a big reload turn like he did last time. Edouard still has the Tusker and plays another Ulvenwald. Not sure how many cards Edouard still has in his hand. He might be running out of gas. Pepijn again scried in the upkeep by sacrificing a servo, enabled revolt, played the rallier, got back a gnarlwood, and will be getting that servo back at the end of the turn. So a lot is going on, and Pepijn is keeping some cards in his hand. We get the Moldgraf Scavenger back, and it looks like Edouard is living off the top of his deck. Transforms the Ovenwald Captive, but with the Death Toucher on the other side of the board, there's not much he can do. This is pretty much offering up a straight up trade. That's interesting. Pepijn not trying to get the transformed captive off the board. So he already had the answer in hand in the form of an Angelic Perch, and that's a virtually empty board with an empty-handed opponent. It's looking very, very good for Pepijn here. Oh, Edouard getting his Verdurous Gearhulk. So a very big impact card, but it looks like it's gonna be too little too late here. So Pepijn also only has one card in hand. He gets to scry in his upkeep again. So that's a 5-5 and a 4-6 on the other side of the table. That makes it so that only the Death Toucher has a profitable attack at this point. But Pepijn is scrying every turn, and half his cards are apparently 2-for-1s, so he shouldn't be too worried to be a bit stuck. He's holding back 6 powers of creatures, so the attack back from Edouard isn't that scary. We haven't seen any instant speed bump spells. And Pepijn plays a Renegade map, has his Revolt Enabler for next turn already in waiting. 6 mana for Edouard. Oh, that's the ingenuity, expertise. The green one, yep, Rishkar's expertise. So draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. That will be 5, and then you may cast a card will convert a mana cost 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Gets a Seed Guardian off that. Could have been a lot worse there. And this could be a game swinger. He has a grip full of cards now again. He has some sizable monsters on the table. And Pepijn choosing to double block the Gearhulk and chump block with the servo. He doesn't need to wait to sacrifice the servo at the beginning of his turn, since he has the Renegade map ready. So that's not that painful to chump block with that there. And suddenly it looks better for Edouard, who drew, I think, 2 of his rares in 2 and 3 turns. It looked pretty bad there. So blocks with the Seed Guardian, gets a token. Apparently there are 7 creatures in the graveyard. Not bad. You let your 3-4 die, you get the 7-7. And we have a Grimflayer. Okay, so this is the showcase of rares and mythics from both of these players' decks apparently now. still just a 4/4 trample. I don't think he'll be getting a chance to come through. I think that Edouard might actually give him the chance to cut through with his Grimflare. Ah no, he's blocking with the Grimflare. So the board gets cleaned up a little bit, but we have a Pima Outrider to follow up. This is Haymaker magic. I thought for sure that Pepijn had it in the bag until that expertise ripped open the game completely. And Pepijn keeps getting Nullwood Dryads to stay alive, but Edouard just keeps on bringing the hurt, now with a rich scale Tusker. I'm starting to get afraid of saying somebody is in a winning position, but this just looks bad for Pepijn. And Edouard knows it and is sending in the team. So that's a 5/5 trample and an 8/8 coming for Pepijn here. That's exactly his life total, so he has to block. Guessing, yeah, taking out the big elemental is the way to go here. I don't see the use in offering up the Renegade Rallier. And Pepijn sees it the same way. Drops to 5, trades his Dryad for the big elemental. And now we have Pepijn with a 3/2 on board, facing 4, 5, 6, 11, 13 points of power spread over 4 creatures, so his top deck better be very, very good here. I hope the forest wasn't the top deck. Pepijn counts him up. Do we get a handshake? And there's the handshake. So Edouard wins the first match 2-1. There we see a third Planeswalker in Pepijn's deck. So a very interesting and interactive match we had for our opener here. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with round 2, where we have